Tonight on PhillyCAM Voices, we have a segment on community activism in Kensington, a piece on Liber-Tease, a drag and burlesque collective, a segment featuring filmmaker Jasmine, Lynea, and community reporter Chinchila Jonesia's in-studio interview with former Juvenile-Lifer Marlo Clark on second chances and life without parole. I'm your host, Bernadette Savage.
You don't want to miss this one.
Dionicio Himénez and Rosalind Pichardo are residents of Kensington and share the same mission to improve the quality of life in a neighborhood marked by poverty, drug use, homelessness, and institutional neglect. This segment offers a snapshot on a restaurant owner and a local leader who are both creating space to support the community in Kensington in different ways.
Mi nombre es Dionicio Himénez. Estamos en Cantina La Martina y soy chef y co-owner de Cantina La Martina, que estamos localizados en Kensington, aquí en Filadelfia. Kensington es una parte de la ciudad olvidada que nadie quiere hablar o que nadie quiere tocar por las drogas. Pero es un problema que nos corresponde a todos y es un problema que se les ha salido de las manos. Estamos fuera, Cantina está fuera en donde en la pandemia le pusieron Ground Zero porque se le salió la epidemia de las drogas de la mano. Aparte de que estaba la epidemia del COVID, la droga se salió de control y tuvieron que cerrar la estación de Somerset y muchos vecinos, organizaciones de aquí de Kensington empezaron a pelear por eso porque es una estación bien concurrida donde gente toma el tren para todos lados. Y ahí fue que empezó el proceso de la pelea de abrir la estación de Somerset. Kensington ha sufrido mucho. La comunidad de Kensington, organizaciones de Kensington han peleado por muchas cosas para que esto siga progresando. Y nosotros nos unimos a esa pelea. Por eso Cantina está localizado donde está localizado.
My name is Rosalind Pichardo, and I'm the founder and executive director of Operation Save Our City in Kensington. Save Our City was started in 2012 after the murder of my brother, Alexander Martinez. So I've been working with families of homicide victims for over a decade. And ever since working with families of homicide victims, there's been other needs, and that is people with addiction and people who are unhoused. So we've been supporting folks in filling the gaps of what my community needs. I think what I'm seeing now is like people who are moving in, the culture change and learning the community and not trying to change that completely. But it's hard too with the crisis that we're dealing with the drug epidemic is we also been, although I'm a resident, the folks who are unhoused, although they're on the sidewalk, they're also residents too, but they don't necessarily come from Philadelphia. They actually come from all over the country. So we're left taking care of other people's kids, which is fine because that's the humane thing to do. However, how do we change the narrative of people who are unhoused, not belonging here? There should be affordable housing. There should be shelters. But there's so much red tape with getting people into shelter that it's nearly impossible to get the near 1,200 people who are out here in addiction and unhoused into facilities. They come from all over the country. LA, New York, California, North Carolina. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people a day. We went at the Sunshine House, the organization, the space that I run, we went from seeing about 50 people a day to now 306 people a day. So the influx of people coming in has increased instead of new administration. So it's not changing. It's just become more difficult for us to maintain the folks that we're serving.
Hay mucha gente que aquí necesita ayuda. Hay muchos negocios que necesitan el soporte de la ciudad, de la policía. Nosotros trabajamos con organizaciones. El aporte que hemos hecho es, el aporte que ha hecho Cantina La Martina es que trabaja con las organizaciones. No queremos trabajar solo, no venimos a hacer un cambio, queremos trabajar con la gente que está trabajando aquí, decir, ok, ya empezaste un proceso, ¿qué te puedo ayudar? ¿Cómo podemos trabajar juntos? ¿En qué podemos contribuir?
Here with the cantina and how we met is through community service, community engagement, connecting with everybody, and just having that same mission that food brings healing. You know, he made his food by scratch, and I got it in a box. But we all know that what the community needs is food. So that's one way we connected.
Hay muchas negociaciones o hay muchas cosas que se envuelven alrededor de una mesa, alrededor de comida, de una buena plática, de una convivencia familiar o amigos o lo que sea. Y nosotros como chefs no tenemos mucha voz, no tenemos muchas formas de expresar todo eso. So, la forma que lo haces es por medio de la comida. Cantina está en un área donde necesita mucha ayuda. Eso nunca lo hemos ocultado. Y eso es la parte que yo pienso que para ser parte de la solución o para querer ser parte de una solución o de un proceso, hay que ser transparente desde el inicio. Y por eso siempre hemos tratado de hacer eso, involucrando comida con los problemas sociales que están pasando alrededor de tu vecindario.
Someone who didn't necessarily have to be here and chose Kensington because Kensington needed love. And that just tells you about a person and their motives. It's not about money. It's about just healing a community that you know is already underserved and that everyone else has turned their back on and they chose not to. So it's, and bringing other people into it, other organizations, other families, everyone's part of the Cantina family. It just shows character and admiration for someone who could have opened a restaurant in Center City, in other parts of the city where it didn't look like this. So that's love. That's love for Kensington. As a resident, that's love for us. I have not ever seen the mayor or any other city official say, hey, Roz, how can we help you? Because we know you see 300 people a day. We know that you're getting people into treatment. We know you're connecting families with their loved ones. You know people are missing, and we become that center where families are reconnected. You know, the minute that folks are treating the Sunshine House as a triage center and the city doesn't recognize it, that's a problem. When someone is shot and they roll them into the Sunshine House, like we're a triage, an emergency room, that's a problem. Knowing that the AR2 is up the street and they're equipped, that's a problem. There's a trust issue there.
El restaurante no es solamente un negocio. Cantina es una misión, Cantina es una visión. Cantina, lo creas o no lo creas, tiene alma. Y tiene sentimiento y tiene todo. Y por eso muchas veces nosotros decimos, ya vamos a tirar la toalla porque Cantina pues, no está funcionando. Cantina es esto, los problemas que pasan o que tuvimos mi esposa siempre se molesta conmigo porque yo me peleé con la policía, que yo me peleé con alguien de la ciudad porque les dije lo que pienso y me dice, a veces debes tener filtros. Digo, pero no me sirve nada de los filtros si no tenemos una solución. Digo, por eso abrimos Cantina, para poder expresarnos.
In Philadelphia, drag and burlesque collective Liber-Tease is creating safer spaces for Black, immigrant, and queer artists to thrive. Founded by Leila Delicious and Cyrus K. Stratton, this community redefines performance as resistance, healing, and collective care.
In a political climate where 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills have been introduced across the U.S., immigration crackdowns, and increased police brutality, survival often looks like resistance. And sometimes that resistance looks like art. In Philadelphia, a drag and burlesque collective called Liber-Tease, founded by Palestinian burlesque performer Leila Delicious and drag king Cyrus Stratton, is building spaces where Black, immigrant, and queer creatives can express themselves freely and safely, and holding on through collective care and art.
We kind of started by talking about the frustrations that we've had in the nightlife community, and being consistently shown that there is not a space in Philly necessarily where performers don't get censored.
So they decided to build their own spaces.
At our last show, we found a dance studio in South Philly that I've been working with for a while, called Headlong Dance Theater. And it was just 2 empty rooms, and we essentially built a venue out of those rooms. We added lights, we had a bar, we had vendors, we had an exhibition, we had posters. Some of Cyrus is a painter, so there were a lot of his posters up there as well, and his paintings.
Queer nightlife has historically been a refuge for LGBTQ plus communities, and for Liber-Tease, art is not just a performance.
Drag in itself is political, and burlesque in itself is political, because drag is automatically, any body on stage is already bringing politics into the space, right? If we see a white body on stage, we perceive it differently than if we see a Black body on stage, and that changes depending on our own identity. So any body performing on stage is always political, and I think drag and burlesque are playing with gender in a really interesting way. So, and as we can see right now from the current administration, gender is something that's constantly, transgender identity people are constantly under threat. So drag already gives people an opportunity to either show who they truly are on the inside and what gender they identify with on the inside. And also can give them a space to be creative and imagine. With burlesque, I think there's a lot of slut shaming that we're kind of undoing in the process, right? How do I take off my clothes and own the space and really be able to control time and the space that I'm in by moving slowly and playing with audience expectations.
In Liber-Tease, each performance challenges oppression while creating moments of joy, pride, and visibility. Liber-Tease performers don't shy away from the issues their community face, like ICE raids, police violence, environmental racism, right for Black women to rest. Palestine.
It's our job to keep coming to these protests. Don't think it doesn't make a difference. It does make a difference, because what scares Israel the most is people waking the fuck up.
I think that for me, burlesque is how I've been able to survive, really, since for the past 2 years. I think that the genocide has had a really big impact on my mental health, and I think that has made me integrate it into my burlesque work a lot and be very intentional. And a lot of what I sometimes try and do with burlesque is Palestinian futurism, which is the Palestinian, version of Afrofuturism. We see Mexican futurism, and this is my own kind of take on it of if we're seeing so many images and videos of kids in Gaza and women in Gaza and men in Gaza starving and crying and bleeding out, how can we imagine a different future by seeing a Palestinian on stage being decked out in rhinestones and pouring olive oil all over myself and eating indulgently, and taking up time and just feeling powerful and like conveying power in the room.
Here, movement becomes an act of imagining liberation, not just for the performer, but the entire community.
My confidence has grown so much because Leila takes such big risks, and like Leila does so much scary shit on stage that like my like normal self would never do.
For many, drag and burlesque are about healing and finding community in a world that often feels unsafe. But that is not all these leaders do to nurture the community.
Cyrus is also an art therapist, so they just started working at a school for kids with autism, and they do like painting and stuff with that to help them, because like kids with autism often can't like verbally process what they're experiencing, but through drawing and through like making sculptures and things like that, they're really able to convey how they're feeling. So Cyrus has like done a lot of work with that, and we're both just really passionate about like the things that we're doing outside of nightlife.
In a challenging political climate, community isn't a luxury. It's how Black, immigrant, and queer creatives hold on and hold each other up. Liber-Tease remind us that art is a survival, resistance, and a path to a future where everyone can feel safe and be seen.
Philadelphia-based filmmaker Jasmine Lynea sat down with community reporter Maica, Pacio, Ximil to talk about their film Della Can Fly and what inspires the stories they tell.
My name is Jasmine Lynea. I am a writer, a director, and a visual artist based in Philadelphia. And I recently just premiered my short film, Della Can Fly, at the Black Star Film Festival. I appreciate filmmaking because it feels like I can reimagine a world for myself, you know, and I can paint a picture that feels real, but obviously not, because it's all fictional in the sense of filmmaking, but it allows me to go deep in my imagination and realize it. I kind of want to, with filmmaking, to paint these worlds that are unearthly, that seem a bit real, but you know that it's not. My journey in filmmaking pretty much started in high school, and I fell in love with film in a film analysis class. And that's a privilege to have that in high school, because it wasn't my filmmaking class that made me fall in love with it. But knowing that, like, you know, film is not just like putting up a camera and just telling actors what to do, but it's a story within a story, you know. It's how people work together on set. It's how we come together to make this thing. Premiering Della Can Fly at Black Star was something I wanted. If it wasn't going to happen, I was going to have my own premiere, but I'm glad that Black Star accepted this film into their film festival this year. And it was beautiful seeing it on a big screen in a theater that has, you know, feels intimate but still big. And also sharing it amongst other filmmakers that had similar themes within. It was beautifully curated overall, and having the time to have a Q&A afterwards to talk about the film a bit and share conversations with other filmmakers on the panel was a really overall great experience, but a fulfilling one, because it's, you know, I've been working really hard on this film. It was nice that the audience, or the audience members that asked questions, really did ask very, I would say, vulnerable questions in terms of what they wanted, what they asked of the filmmakers. And one of them is just like, how is your family involved in this? And, you know, the film has to do a lot about family bonds, family history, family preservation. And they're part of it in so many ways. So this relationship between the young and the elder, I think those two type of relationships, you know, maybe as quiet as it's kept, but I gravitate to the elder. My relationship with my grandmother, I've always been fascinated by her journey because she has, a lot of years she has lived and still living, and she has a great memory, and it's a big privilege and also a pleasure to have a person who is in their 90s that has a great memory. The things that she passes down is a connection I really do cherish, and sometimes when she speaks, it feels like she's narrating a movie. The Black home has so much history within it without even like photos, right? It's this energy in the space. It's how people utilize the space, whether it's a home to family or friends, or a home where people party and have other gatherings with each other. There's a history component to it, and with Black ownership of land is very, very important because, no one really owns land, but having like the control of your property is a sign of like power, and I would say also a sign of protection. It's a sign that we were here. It's a sign that, we've gathered, that we have history here, that we existed. Yeah, so flying in the film is to show how I wanted to show the magic that lives within Black people, and also with magic that's still there within the past and which can show up in the present day and future. And I started writing it because of hearing my grandmother's experience with not necessarily flying, but what felt like flying in my imagination, because it was her way of escaping. It was her way of feeling free and liberated. And it's her story of just, escaping to Coney Island, because she grew up in Brooklyn. And to me, that felt like, oh, wow, that was a moment of flight that you took. It's always made me think about how other ways has she flown? What other ways do I fly, or my parents and my friends? And the appreciation of Amala for, learning about, family history and learning about this person who's been outcasted in their family shows appreciation for the past, for things that are looked over, and continuing it on. Now she knows that she can fly, or to be continued, but she's lifted off the ground, and how that can be passed down, how that can continue on. Flying is being liberated. The story of the flying Africans, Africans that were stolen from their land, some of them flew back, right? It's separating yourself from that bondage, from that imprisonment, and finding freedom within inside you, whether it's going back to the land or finding other ways to be free. And I'm using film to emphasize on that, to emphasize on what freedom can look like, and emphasize on what freedom looks like for oneself too, not necessarily for other people, but what self-love and radical love and freedom looks like to someone. Film, but it's also talking about what it looks like to kind of strip yourself away from what is normal and gravitate to something that's unknown to you, but also leaning into it to find something greater than yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Chinchila Jonesia, the Queen of Justice. And now here with me in the studio is Marlo Clark, a former juvenile-lifer who spent 25 years behind bars, convicted of second-degree felony murder at the age of 17, and he was paroled in 2018. Let's welcome Marlo to Voices and find out how he was able to get paroled.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
In 2018, I got paroled because of a case that happened in 2012 in United States Supreme Court versus Miller, Alabama. Miller, Alabama made it illegal to give a juvenile a mandatory life sentence. So the United States Supreme Court cases had to go back up to the United States Supreme Court because Pennsylvania and several states refused to apply the sentence or removed the mandatory nature of the sentence. So 2016, Henry Montgomery came down from the U.S. Supreme Court stating that Miller versus Alabama was in fact retroactive. And that's what allowed me to go back to court to get a sentence, to get life with parole. That sentence is, however, kind of fraud and unconstitutional at the same time, because there was no sentencing statute in the place at the time of my conviction that allowed for you to take a guy out of prison and just give him parole because of a new law came down. So Pennsylvania went to court in a case called Commonwealth versus Batts, and they challenged it. And in Commonwealth versus Batts, they came up with the concept of severs in the statute for equal protection of an old case, even though the Pennsylvania legislature said that that rule did not apply to anybody that was convicted before 2012.
Wow.
So they made what I consider, and a lot of us consider, another illegal sentence by placing men on parole with life behind bars.
Wow. Okay, so I guess I want to say this like a double whammy. So like life without parole. Okay, so you served that, you got paroled in 2018, and really you would have still been in prison had it not been for
Right.
that case.
Affecting it.
Right, and so you got out, and yet you are serving lifetime parole, is that correct?
Correct, as of right now. So the only thing they're telling me right now is that after a while of good behavior is a chance should be coming for me to get the sentence commuted.
Okay.
So that's been somewhat of a pipe dream. We have not yet seen these commuting of sentences, while the vast majority of us are living good and productive lives, working hard, being mentors, owning our own businesses, some of us, owning homes and things of that nature. Right. So we're showing that we have demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation.
You work for J.B. Hunt. Okay, you
Right.
are a driver, and you also are a trainer there to
Right.
train new drivers.
Yeah.
And how long have you been there?
I've been there for over 6.5 years now. So I train drivers on the job as well as drive the truck.
Okay.
I also train drivers in trucking schools on my days off, and I mentor young men to get young men away from a life of crime. So I use my second chance to help them consider second thought before the worst thing can ever happen in our community, which is a murder or something of that nature.
While you were behind bars, where you were housed, about how many juveniles were there when you were a juvenile?
When I was a juvenile, it probably was about 250 in my class. Now there's over 500
Wow.
in that same class. And some of the guys, we was just pushed into adult prisons until they came up with a prison for adults. What they would do sometimes in Pennsylvania, they'd put you in a cell either with another juvenile or put you by yourself. And then soon when you turn 18, it's like he can go in a cell with whoever and throw him to the wolves. So if you're not tough enough to make it in that environment, then you're done. You're doomed.
Wow. Wow.
So it's like a death sentence. And one of the harshest things that you ever got to think about every day is knowing that you were a child and that here it is, you locked up. For example, for me, I was charged with saying somebody had drugs and money in a chain. And the witness said, I said, if that's what you want to do, you do it. When the guy asked me, according to the witness, do you want to rob the guy?
Wow.
I want to rob him. He said, if that's what you want to do, you do it. So prior to them leaving me, they planned the robbery. They supposed to went down the street and robbed this guy. He broke away and ran. One of them shot him. And
so now, let me just pause you right there, because we're almost time to wrap it up. So the point is, I want everybody to understand, Marlo did not shoot anyone. He did not kill anyone. But he was charged with second-degree felony murder because he was, there?
No.
He was there because you were there?
They didn't say I was there.
They didn't say you were there?
They said I'm the one who said he had drugs, money, in the chain. And if you want to stick him up, you stick him up. That's what they said I said. So they interpreted the you stick him up as meaning I'm saying go stick him up.
Go stick him up like
so
you
I was
instigated
charged
it.
because they wanted me to say that the guy shot him. They wanted me to say that.
Wow.
And
so
even
felony,
though I was not there, they said I did not say
all right.
it. So
thank you. So felony murder, everybody, it's second-degree felony murder. You don't have to be the shooter, but you can still be charged because you're there, because they think you're an accomplice or any of those number of things. And they're fighting to end that so that people with second-degree felony murder can get parole. I'm Chinchila Jonesia, the Queen of Justice. Thank you, Marlo, so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. You can also watch our show on YouTube and Roku, and follow us at PhillyCAM on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you next time.